Hi guys, welcome back to Can I Chase Paranormal Investigations. I hope you're well. So this is another little short story about something that happened to me paranormally, I think, when I was small. And I only realised that this could be paranormal about 10 years ago. So essentially what happened was when I lived, when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I think it was probably the early 70s, and I got three brothers, and the brother that was sort of second up from me, he was quite adventurous, but a bit of a troubling one for my parents, and it was always having accidents and doing daft things, and so yeah, he's a bit of a handful, I would have guessed. And what happened this particular day was if you was to look at the front of our house, I was looking for a picture of it. Actually, couldn't find one, but we had this like tiny little drive, big enough for one car, and then we had a sort of big gate, and you could open that gate. I mean, when I say big gate, I mean it was the height of the height of a garage of a wall. So it was a big thing. You could open it, and you then drive your car into another little driveway, and then you'd have like a little garage. Don't think my dad ever put his car in that garage, but then you could close the gate. So it was a big gate, and this gate had a door built in, so you could open the door and you could walk through and close the door. So how would this gate be? It was a yellow gate. It was about I don't know, about 10, maybe 10, 15 foot high. Yeah, it's probably about between 12 and 15 foot high. And so just in front of his gate, you had on the one side you had a little path that ran to the door, and on the other side you had like a small iron kind of spiked railing thing that was on the one side. And what happened was that my brother was climbing up this gate. He was going up because you could sort of sit on top of it if you could get up there. I never went up there. I was too small, but you could sort of climb up it. And he was in that adventurous stage where I think he might have been about 7 years old. He was like scampering up this gate and jumping around on top of it and stuff. And I was at the bottom of his gate, and for some reason, and the strangest thing about this was that I was my communication to my brother and the way I was talking, when I look back in hindsight, didn't feel like I was talking from the perspective of a 4-year-old. I kind of felt like it was, I'm almost projecting an adult's perspective. So yeah, it was almost like it was like a possession of an adult that was, with all the sensibility that come with being an adult. My brother climbed up on his fence, on his gate, and he was just, I don't know what he was trying to do. And he sort of like, then he was sort of turned around, and he was sort of half off the gate, and he was just messing around. And I was shouting up to him, or calling up to him, saying, you need to be careful, be careful. You don't fall because you'll hurt yourself. Be careful. You need to come down. Just be careful. And as I'm shouting that, he carries on. Maybe 1-2 seconds later, he slips. He kind of fell off, and I don't really kind of remember very much. It was a bit of a blur, but an ambulance came. I think he punctured his arm with one of his with this metal spike thing on the fence. So I don't know the full extent of that, but apparently it punctured his arm, one of these spikes, and they rushed him to hospital and patched him up. And that was that. So I was telling him about that, asking him if he remembered the incident, that of a game. He was saying, yeah, he did, and I was also saying, do you, why didn't you get down? Because I was calling you to come down. I was shouting at you to come down, and you weren't responding. You weren't even sort of like um, cussing me as your younger sibling. You weren't even shouting at me, and he kind of looked at me and he said, "Well, you weren't actually there. That's the reason why I never spoke to you. You weren't actually there." Um, so I'm thinking now that maybe there's either two possibilities here: that A, he just wasn't aware of me being there until it was too late. I'm assuming he maybe passed out or something after the accident, or B, I literally wasn't there and I was somehow sort of projecting, um, I don't know. I honestly don't know what the explanation for it is. He's very adamant that I was not present when he fell. Um, and I can even remember that it was nice. It was like, I think it was a spring day, so it was quite nice. It wasn't cold. It wasn't warm. Maybe there'd been a bit of wet and stuff, but it was quite a nice spring day, and there's no reason. It wasn't like he couldn't hear me because of wind or rain, or it was a nice pleasant day. There was just the two of us. There was nobody else. It was a fairly quiet street back then. There was less cars anyway on the roads back then. And the street we were on, the road we were on, was always kind of felt quite quiet and peaceful. I could go out and play in that road, and you might see the odd car going down there, but I don't remember there being an issue with cars. Now, if I went out to the high street, then obviously lots of cars there and the roads around that. But where we lived, it felt quite leafy and peaceful. So there was no reason why he couldn't actually hear me, and but he's adamant that I wasn't there. So how I felt like I was watching what he was doing, I do not know. And if anybody else has ever had an experience like that, where they've been present but they haven't, I would love to know. I mean, I had a lot of kind of odd. I'm not even sure what the terminology is for that kind of experience, but I've had a lot of odd experiences where I've imagined something that has happened, but I haven't actually been around. And it's almost like I was there, but I wasn't. And this was by far the clearest experience I've ever had of this kind of thing. So, yeah. Do you know if you have had anything like that when you was young, or I mean, it wouldn't happen when you're older because when you're older, you're in a position to discuss and debate that at the time. But when you're young, your voice doesn't really kind of carry or count. But yeah, I'd love to know if any of you have had an experience like that.